This video is going to outline a couple of methods that you can use to set up your Teacher Connect gradebook. The first thing I'll mention is that every gradebook needs a category in order to add assignments and for grades to be calculated for each marking period. I'm going to give you two methods of setting up your gradebook and setting up categories. The first method will be the template method, which can be used as a single source that can be applied to all of your existing gradebooks throughout the entire year. And the second method will be copying categories from one gradebook to another gradebook and to multiple marking periods. So let's begin. So once you launch your Teacher Connect gradebook, you will come in on the Gradebook button, and once in the gradebook you will come over, and the first thing we'll discuss is how do we set up a template. So I think of a template as a single gradebook that I can create, and this single gradebook will determine what is displaying in the gradebooks I have this template applied to. As I mentioned in the intro, we have to have at the minimum a single category set up in the gradebook in order for me to add assignments and calculate marking period grades. You'll notice on the left side of my screen would be a list of my categories, which we'll see those fill in as we add categories. We have a section for assignments, and yes, templates can be used to create categories and then create assignments within that category. And then the last section of the screen is the template section. So as we build and add templates, those templates will be available for us to use and to edit and to apply to multiple classes. So let's begin by creating a category. Now, you can click directly on this Add a Category button, but I'm going to go ahead and use my drop-down arrow, and I want to select the Advanced entry. And the reason I want to select this Advanced entry is because it opens a dialog box and I can see all of the different options that I have when I create a category. The first thing you're going to notice is at the top of the screen there is a category name that is required. Anywhere we see a red asterisk in the system, that means it is a required field. Now you can have a gradebook with one single category, and maybe that category would be called points. You can have multiple categories in a gradebook, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate today, and we'll set up three basic categories that I often see in a gradebook. So we'll start off with a homework or a category of homework. Now the next field down is your weight field. So weights can be used specifically if you want to use, there are two different grading methods. Let's start off with that, or four different grading methods, but there are two common grading methods that we see within a gradebook. The most common method we see is the summation grading method, which is the total points. So if I want a total points gradebook, I'm going to use a summation method. If I want to weight my categories, so if I want my homework to be 10% of the student's grade, I would select a grading method of averaging and give it a weight of 10%. Then I would set up my test to be 50% and my quizzes to be 40% to add up to a total of 100%. And again, averaging, you can have different weights. Summation, total points, we always want to have a weight of 1. Never a weight of 0, because anything that's in that category, any grade times a 0 would be a 0. So you always at the minimum want to have a weight of 1. So that's what the weight box, it correlates with the grading method. In addition, I can say any homework assignment or any assignment I put in my homework category, I can drop the lowest score if I want, and I can put in any number I want. I can drop the 2 lowest homework assignments, or I can drop a single lowest homework assignment. I can also drop the highest score in this category if I would like. We did discuss grading methods. For a complete list of grading methods in the help menu, there is a section called grading, and that will outline all of the different methods in here. But again, the two most common are your summation or your averaging, and for this demonstration I'm going to do a summation gradebook. The next drop down below, how do I want to display this information on the student and parent portals? By default, it comes into category name and details, which would give me the name of the category, homework, and the details would be the marking period average. If I select category name only, it's only going to show me the category of homework and not the percentage grade the student has earned in this particular category. So most commonly I see the category name and details in there. We have three additional options to give some color to the gradebook. Now by default, gradebook background is white. And usually what I recommend if people want to add color to their gradebook is stick to a text color, because when we start adding backgrounds and text colors, especially not so much the text color, but the background colors can sometimes hinder the performance of the gradebook. So again, if you want to add color to your gradebook, I would recommend text color, but you can certainly set a background color as well. So in my text color, just to demonstrate how this would work, I'll pick a color for my homework assignments. And again, your background color functions the same way, but rather than having a white background, it would have the color that you choose. You can also apply font items to the assignments that come into the category. Like I can make all of my assignments in the homework category italicized. I can make them bold, or I can underline them if I would like. So the top section are your category defaults, and again we want to always use weights and the appropriate grading method. And the bottom section is telling the system whenever I add an assignment to this category of homework, how do I want my default values to come in? So in the first section it says max points, but again this is default points, not truly max points. As an example, if most of my homework assignments are worth 10 points, I would put a 10 in here. So this prevents me from having to edit every assignment that I add into this category and changing it to a 10. Now this is not going to restrict me if I have a homework assignment and it's worth 50 points. Absolutely you can change that information when you're adding the assignments. This section is designed just to save you a little bit of time in editing as you're adding assignments into the gradebook. I can say every time I add an assignment into the category of homework, I would like bonus points applied to every assignment, and then there's a multiplier option. So you could say every assignment in this category would be worth 10 points and my multiplier would be applied to the point value. Most commonly what we see for category setups are the bonus remains a 0 and the multiplier remains a 1. And again, you can go in and edit individual assignments and change multipliers and bonus points and things like that. The two things I'd like to recommend is the first one, which would be to check the box next to allow a comment, and that is so that if you wanted to comment on a particular graded assignment for a student, you can put a comment in, and those comments are viewable on both the student and the parent portal. And the other one I would recommend changing is publish on portal. By default it's set to not published, but typically whenever I add a homework assignment I want the parents and students to see the assignment and the grade. The one option that I skipped here is display on gradebook, and we would never really want to uncheck this box, because what that would say is anytime I add an assignment into this homework category I don't want it to display in my gradebook. So we will leave this checked. And if for some reason you cannot see any category assignments, I would come in and check my category setup and make sure that display on gradebook is set so that all new assignments will be added into the gradebook view. So once you create your first category, you can go ahead and click the Save button. And you're going to see the information come down into the categories section of the template field. I'll continue to add the additional categories. I will leave it a weight of 1 because I'm going to use the summation total points gradebook, and I will drop my lowest test score. I'm going to add a text color, and I'm going to also bold at all of my test assignments. My tests are always worth 100 points, or typically worth 100 points. I'm going to allow a comment, and I'm going to set this to assignment and grade, and we'll save that. And we'll repeat this process one last time to add a new category of quiz. I'm going to set it to a summation, give it a color. Oops. I think I'll use dark purple. And quizzes are typically worth 50 points. Now, the key here is that we want to make sure that all of our categories are set up that they are using the same grading method. All right? So if you would come in to review a gradebook, and what you'll notice is, again, if we use the same grading methods, our grades will calculate the way we expect them to. Sometimes I will see where people have used a mixed grading method, meaning all of their categories are set to one grading method, and then they'll have a category added in maybe at a later time. It's set to a different grading method. When you have mixed grading methods within a gradebook, the gradebook will give you the average of the averages of the categories. So if you want a truly summation gradebook total points, you would want to make sure that your grading methods are all set to the same. In this case would be summation. Now, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but when I click on any viewable field, I can edit that information. I can change the name, I can change the weight, and I can change the grading method. If you want to see the entire dialog box, like when we added the categories, if I click the pencil, it will open up the box, and then I can change my defaults however I need them to be changed. So I'm going to save this, and now I have a saved template. But really, I know I would like to have these categories apply to all of my gradebooks for the entire year. This is a simple process, and what we can do to set up these templates is we can use the Save As button. Now, what I will mention is, as I mentioned before, we can set up categories, assignments, and whatever is in the template and the courses that the template applied to. Whenever I make a change in a template, that change will flow down to my gradebooks. If I add an assignment in my template, that assignment will flow down to gradebooks. All right. If I use a template to create categories, I can absolutely create a new category outside of the template within my gradebook. I can also add assignments within my gradebook. We don't have to use the template for assignments. And you may not want to use the template for assignments because there are some drawbacks as far as like the due date and publish dates. If you have that set up through a template, every course that is applied to the template would have the same due date, the same publish date, and a lot of times if courses meet on different days or a class is missed to a snow emergency, those due dates may change. So that's really why I'm showing you how to use a template to set up categories. All right, so back to the other thing about a template. Templates carry over year to year. So if you set these up the first year that you're in the gradebook, every year you come into the school and you want to set up your new courses, all we have to do is apply this template to the courses for each marking period. You can only have one template applied per marking period. So let me show you how that works. So once I set this up and I have verified that my categories are the way I want them and that they all have the same grading method, what you'll do is click the Save As button. And I'll call this Marking Period 1. And I'll know that this needs to be applied to all of my Marking Period 1 classes, and I'm going to click Save. Now you'll see as I use this Save As button, my templates will fill down here on the right side of my screen. So I'm going to repeat this for each marking period. So you'll see that within a span of about 5 or 10 minutes, I can set up a template, use my Save As button, and have a template for every marking period. Now, before we apply the template, I'd like to take you back to the gradebook so I can show you what a gradebook looks like before and after a template is applied. So let me go back to the gradebook by clicking the gradebook button. And what you'll see when I come into my gradebook under the Advanced Entry view, you will see that I do not have any categories. So I'm not even going to be able to set up an assignment even if I wanted to. When I'm in Advanced Entry, I should see the summary of each category within this gradebook. So I'm going to go back to my templates, and I want to make sure I'm highlighted on marking period 1, because whatever template you're highlighted on is what you will be applying when I click on the apply button. So the apply button tells the system, take this template and apply it to every class that I select. Now, like I said, I wanted to make sure I was highlighted on marking period 1, but if you want to verify that, you should see the name of the template at the top left corner of the template apply box. So I would basically come down into every course in marking period 1 and apply it to the courses I'm going to utilize my gradebook in. So now when I go back to the gradebook, you can see I have a breakdown. I have my quiz, my tests, and my homework. And like I said before, if your template only contains categories, if you want to edit a category or change your assignment defaults, you'd want to go back to templates. You would want to make sure you're on the correct marking period template, and then you could open a category, and maybe I decide I really want my test to always be worth 150 points, or initially be worth 150 points, and save that. Okay, so you can see my breakdown of categories here on the right side of my screen. Now, just to show you why I was kind of really going over the assignment defaults, I want you to realize that when I go to add an assignment, if I click my assignment button, and if I pick my category of homework, what you'll see are all the defaults that I put in. Okay, so by selecting the category, I get defaults. I also get an assignment default name, which I'd want to update because you'd want the assignment to be named appropriately. But again, remember I said that we can change our max points. We're not restricted to the max points that we set up at the assignment default. Due dates you can change with your calendar feature, and you can pick a different due date. Okay. And the other thing I'll point out while we're discussing this or adding an assignment is there are two things that are required to publish an assignment on the portal. One is publish to portal, which we set up as our category default, and the second is the published date. Now you'll notice it filled in with today's date because I already said I want this on the portal, but you also have a calendar option here, and you can move this out to publish on a specific date. And I will save that. And you'll see that I now have a homework assignment and it is worth 50 points. So we discussed templates. Let's talk about another way that we can use or set up categories, and we can, once they're set up, we can copy those categories to marking periods. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I have a template applied here, I'm going to switch to a marking period that has nothing in it, just like we started out with in marking period 1. So if you want to use your copy assignment feature or copy your categories, the first thing I will mention is instead of going to templates, we'll go into the setup screen. This looks a lot like our template screen, and I can go in and add categories. This time I am going to set up an averaging gradebook, and make my homework worth 10 points. I'm not going to assign a color. We'll go ahead and set up homework defaults. And I'm going to repeat this process to include the other two categories I had in my template. Make our test worth 50% of the grade. My tests are worth 150. Okay, so I have three categories. This time I'm using my averaging method. Typically, if you're a teacher, you're going to stick with one grading method or another, but I did want to demonstrate the two different and most common grading methods. So now that I have this set up, the first thing I'll do is I'll save this. Okay, and what you'll notice is if I go back to the gradebook, I will have my quiz, my tests, and my homework. And I can see the percentages that are assigned to each category. What you will notice, because I didn't use a template, when I switch classes, I won't have any categories again. So I'm going to stay in my class where I have my setup done, and in my setup screen, the new button that I want to show you, not the template button, but we'll use the copy assignments button. And when I click this button, what you'll notice is I have two sides to my screen. I have my source side. So where am I copying this information from? What is my source? Of course, I have the class and the marking period. And my target does come up the same class, so I'll need to pick a new class. And once I pick a new class and make sure it's in the right marking period, I will do a compare. So I'm comparing my source to my target. My target doesn't have any categories, but my source has 3. So if I want all 3 categories to be copied, I will click append, and then I will click save, and then I click OK, and then select a new class. And I will repeat this process for each class. And as I mentioned in the intro, using this method, it does take a little bit more clicking and a little bit more time to set it up. So that might be something you want to consider. Plus, they're not like templates, this will not copy over year to year, so that is another benefit of using the template to set up your gradebook. Because not only do I have to select every class in marking period 2, but then I need to switch to marking period 3 and repeat this process over and over again. Okay? So those are your two methods of setting up a gradebook, remembering that at the minimum you must have one category, and once you have a category set up, then you can go ahead and start adding assignments into your gradebook. And then the one last thing I'll just mention is, before you start applying all of your templates to all the marking periods, just be sure that you review these templates, or that you review the categories within the template to make sure that you're using the same grading method, because truly that is the key, to make sure that your categories are set up correctly, that they use the same grading method before we start applying them to the gradebooks for the year. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, you can contact the CSIU if you have additional questions. Thank you and have a great day.